How did ancient people navigate the ocean without maps? You're in a canoe in the middle of the Pacific. No compass. No GPS. No coastline anywhere in sight. Just open water in every direction for over 2,000 miles. And somehow, the person steering knows exactly which way to go. In 1976, a Micronesian navigator named Mau Piailug sailed a reconstructed voyaging canoe called Klee from Hawaii to Tahiti. No instruments. The voyage took over a month. Piailug barely slept more than a few hours at a stretch the entire time. When he arrived, he'd proven something scholars had argued about for decades. That ancient Polynesians could cross thousands of miles of open ocean on purpose, not by accident. Piailug learned this system from his grandfather, starting as a small child, using pools of water and stones laid out to represent stars. By the time he was a teenager, he'd earned the title of Master Navigator on his home island of Satawal. He had memorized the rising and setting points of more than 150 stars. Here's how the system actually works. At sunset, as stars begin to appear, a navigator picks one on the horizon and steers toward it. But stars don't hold still. As a star climbs higher in the sky, it curves and stops giving a reliable bearing. So the navigator switches to the next star rising in roughly the same spot. This might happen 2 or 3 times in a single night, one star handing off direction to the next like a relay. Piailug's student, Nainoa Thompson, later organized this knowledge into something called the Hawaiian Star Compass. The horizon gets divided into 32 houses, each one marking where a particular star, the sun, or the moon rises or sets. Each house sits about 11 degrees apart. It's not a physical object. It's a mental map, held entirely in memory, that a navigator uses to hold a course for weeks. Stars only work when the sky is clear. Ocean crossings rarely stay clear the whole way. So navigators trained on a second system entirely. The swell. Ocean swells are different from waves. Wind waves are choppy and local, they change with the weather. Swells are long, steady patterns of energy that travel thousands of miles from distant storms, and they stay remarkably consistent in direction. A trained navigator can lie down in the hull of a canoe and feel the rhythm of the swell through the vessel itself, even with eyes closed, even at night, even through solid cloud cover. Piailug was known for navigating stretches of the Klee voyage this way, tracking direction purely by the pitch and roll of the boat when the stars were completely hidden. In the Marshall Islands, a separate navigation tradition took this even further. Navigators built stick charts, frameworks of wood and fiber with shells tied onto mark islands, showing how ocean swells bend, split, and reflect around specific atolls. These charts weren't carried on voyages. They were study tools, memorized on land, then left behind. The actual navigation happened entirely in the navigator's body, feeling for the exact pattern the chart had trained them to recognize. Birds gave one more layer of information. Certain seabirds, like the white tern, fly out to fish in the morning and return to land at night, meaning their flight direction near dusk points toward the nearest island, sometimes from more than 30 miles out. Experienced navigators watched for these birds specifically in the final stretch of a voyage, using them to fine-tune a landfall the stars alone couldn't pinpoint. This kind of navigation wasn't unique to the Pacific. Bedouin travelers crossing the Arabian desert navigated by a similar logic applied to sand instead of sea, reading the direction of prevailing winds baked permanently into dune shapes, so that even in a featureless desert, the ground itself held a compass. Aboriginal Australians used a different method entirely. Songlines, epic oral narratives that encoded entire travel routes across the continent as sequences of landmarks tied to story and song. Walking the songline meant singing the story in order, and the story itself told you where to turn. What all of these systems share is that they're not instinct. They're built, deliberately, over years, usually starting in early childhood, and they combine several independent sources of information. Sky, swell, wind, wildlife, terrain, so that if one signal disappears, like the stars vanishing under cloud cover, the others still hold the course. By the mid-20th century, this knowledge had nearly disappeared. When the Polynesian Voyaging Society wanted to reconstruct an ancestral voyage in the 1970s, they couldn't find a single Hawaiian navigator left who knew the old methods. They had to go to Satawal and ask Piailug, one of the last 6 master navigators alive anywhere in the Pacific at that point, to teach it back to Hawaii. Piailug agreed, on one condition that broke centuries of tradition. Wayfinding had always been passed down purely through memory, master to student, never written. Piailug allowed his students to write it down. He understood that if he didn't, the knowledge might vanish entirely within a generation. Today, Nainoa Thompson and the navigators trained through that lineage have sailed the Hlee around the world, including a full circumnavigation of the globe, using nothing but the system Piailug rebuilt from memory. Somewhere out on the open ocean, a person can still lie in the bottom of a boat, feel the swell through the hull, glance at a star relay overhead, and know exactly where they are. No instrument built since has fully replaced what that took a lifetime to learn.